The walls of La Porchetta echoed with laughter one second, and gunfire the next. A busy lunch hour. Families eating, the smell of wine and garlic in the air. Then, 2 shots. No warning, no shouts, just silence and smoke. The man on the floor was Andrew Benjamin Veniamin, 28 years old. A name whispered across Melbourne's underworld. A man Victoria police suspected was linked to at least 7 gangland executions, and feared in 100 more. He wasn't supposed to die that day. He came here for lunch, not a meeting, not a hit. Sitting across from him was Dominic Mick Gatto, an underworld mediator and an old friend. Witnesses remember the 2 men talking quietly. No argument, no threat, just conversation, until something shifted. A struggle. 2 shots. One through the neck, one through the eye. Gatto told police it was self-defense. The courts agreed, but few in Melbourne believed it was that simple. Because this wasn't a rivalry, it wasn't a contract, it was something harder to explain. A killer dying at the hands of the only man he ever trusted. And the question that still echoes through Melbourne's underworld isn't who pulled the trigger, it's what broke between them that day. The day the hitman died, and his friend walked away free. Miss the button? Go ahead, subscribe now so you don't forget later. Before the gang wars. Before the murders police would one day investigate, Andrew Benjamin Veniamin walked quietly through the western Melbourne suburb of Sunshine West, heading to church. St. Andrew's Greek Orthodox Church, a small white brick chapel built by first-generation immigrants, sat 2 blocks from his parents' home. Inside, golden icons caught the morning light as incense drifted through the pews. He served as an altar boy there throughout the 1980s. His father, Apollo Veniamin, worked long hours in construction. His mother, Mariana, ran the household. They believed their only son, born 16th of November, 1975, would live a clean, faithful life. But outside those church walls, Sunshine West was changing. Drugs were spreading. Fights weren't about respect anymore. They were about reputation. And loyalty, once sacred, became the language of survival. Boxing offered him structure. Under legendary Olympic coach Bo Gehring, the 17-year-old made the Victorian state team, even considered for the 1994 Commonwealth Games. Gehring would later describe him to reporters as a talented fighter with an uncontrollable temper. Yet the discipline that made him sharp in the ring unraveled the moment he stepped back onto those streets. 1993, age 17. Court records show Veniamin and 2 associates ambushed a cigarette delivery truck in West Sunshine. They handcuffed a salesman, taped his eyes, and threw him into a van before transferring $28,000 worth of tobacco to another vehicle. The victim escaped, sun-blinded, shaken, alive. Within days, detectives raided Veniamin's home and found the stolen goods hidden under his bed. He was arrested, charged with armed robbery, and sentenced to 3 years at Tirana Youth Detention Center, the state facility for juvenile offenders. According to former detention officers interviewed years later, Veniamin rarely spoke and showed little emotion during his incarceration. One officer allegedly told investigators he was too calm for someone his age. He didn't fear consequence, he studied it. Whether that quote is accurate or has become part of the legend, one thing is certain. When released in 1996, the altar boy was gone. In his place, a man who'd decided that silence was strength and fear was currency. Sunshine West still knew his name, but no longer recognized his face. How does someone go from carrying candles to carrying guns, from serving communion to serving revenge? Maybe it didn't happen overnight. Maybe it started right here, in a quiet Melbourne suburb where faith met fury, and the line between sinner and saint was already fading. By 17, Andrew Benjamin Veniamin wasn't just drifting toward the underworld, he was already in it. When he was released from Tirana in 1996, he didn't go home. He went back to the streets of Sunshine, straight to his old mates, Dino Debra and Paul Kalapolitis. Together, they called themselves the Sunshine Boys, a small but violent crew. They ran car rebirthing rings, stealing luxury vehicles, stripping VIN numbers, and selling them through front garages. By night, they pushed ecstasy, marijuana, steroids, and amphetamines across Melbourne's western suburbs. Police described them as reckless, but the underworld knew better. They were organized. The Sunshine Boys were fearless because they were loyal, not to money, but to each other. And at the center of it all was Benji, small, muscular, sharp-eyed, a boxer's build. But what unnerved detectives most wasn't his size, it was his stillness. According to police reports from Operation Piranha, he rarely showed emotion during questioning. He just smiled. Between 1996 and 1999, police linked his circle to extortion, armed robberies, and street violence that fed into Melbourne's growing drug economy. The Sunshine Crew was now on the radar of Victoria Police's organised crime squad. But Benji was already shifting focus, aiming higher. His best friend Dino Dibra had connections to major players, men like Nick, the Russian Radev, and the emerging Carl Williams, a drug dealer with ambitions bigger than anyone realized. That connection would change everything. Because while most crews tried to make money, Benji wanted something else: power. Power you couldn't buy, only take. Police surveillance from the late 90s shows him frequenting gyms, strip clubs, and body shops. Always armed, always watching. He spoke little, fought often, and trusted no one outside Sunshine. But then came 1998, and a single decision that turned loyalty into legend. According to underworld sources later interviewed by police, when a hit was ordered on Carl Williams, Benji was part of the crew meant to carry it out. But he didn't. He walked away, and within a week, he switched sides, joining Williams instead. To the underworld, that move was suicide. To Benji, it was strategy. The boy from Sunshine was now protecting the man he was set to kill. And in the years ahead, that loyalty would build an empire and leave a trail of bodies across Melbourne's streets. Every killer has a moment they stop pretending to be human. For Benji Veniamin, that moment had already passed. The question now wasn't if he would kill, it was how many times before someone killed him first. By 1999, the silence surrounding Andrew Benjamin Veniamin had turned deadly. Joseph Quidera, 57-year-old greengrocer, shot dead in a Torrec car park. Police suspected mistaken identity. No arrests made. Frank Benvenuto, known crime figure, killed in the driveway of his Beaumaris home in May 2000. 2 bullets through the window. No witnesses. Then came October 14, 2000. His closest friend, Dino Dibra, 25, executed outside his Sunshine West home. Multiple shots to the head and chest. Police called it a professional hit, but detectives saw something else: motive. The boy who once built the Sunshine Boys was now being linked to their destruction, one by one. 2 years later, another friend, Paul Kalipolitis, killed in similar fashion. Execution at close range, body found at the front door. To investigators, it looked like a pattern. To the underworld, it looked like a purge. Police believed Veniamin wasn't cleaning up evidence. He was erasing his past. Then came the hits that shook the city. Victor Pierce, ambushed in Port Melbourne. The shooting was clinical. No shouting, no panic, just precision. April 15, 2003. Nick, the Russian Radev, riddled with bullets outside his Mercedes in broad daylight. 7 rounds. A hit so fast police never recovered a single shell casing. December 13, 2003. Graham, the Munster Kinneberg, veteran of the Carlton crew, shot dead outside his Kew home. Kinneberg was 62, a father and grandfather who'd survived decades in the underworld, only to fall on his own doorstep. The killing sent a shock through Melbourne's old guard. Each murder pulled police closer, but nothing stuck. No DNA, no prints, no witnesses willing to talk. By now, a special task force had formed, Operation Piranha. Their mandate was simple: stop the killings. But every file, every phone intercept, every whispered lead kept circling back to one man, Andrew Benjamin Veniamin. Police strongly suspected his involvement, but proving it was another matter entirely. He didn't kill for money. investigators believed. He killed for belonging. Every name on that list had history with him. Old friends, old rivals. He'd once stood beside them. Now he was being investigated for burying them. The question wasn't whether Benji was the trigger man. The question was why every person he cared about kept ending up in his line of fire. Was it loyalty twisted into paranoia? Or the realization that in Melbourne's underworld, trust was just a countdown? Every death left a mark. Every silence hid a motive. And yet, through it all, Benji never flinched, never boasted, never broke. Because to him this wasn't a war. It was maintenance. The city's underworld was tearing itself apart, and he was the one man making sure the pieces didn't come back together. But behind every hit, there was a deeper story, one connection that would change everything, because the next confrontation wouldn't be with an enemy. It would be with someone he called a brother. Quick reminder, if you're still watching, you already know this story's about to turn dark. To the public, he barely existed. No mugshots in the papers, no flashy headlines, just whispers. Benji. But to the underworld, Andrew Benjamin Veniamin earned a dark nickname, one even Mick Gatto would later repeat in court testimony: Australia's busiest hitman. His weapon of choice, according to police reports, was always the same: a .38 Smith & Wesson revolver, compact, silent, and clean, 6 rounds. No shell casings, no evidence. Yet for all his reputation for violence, there was contradiction. Because by 2003, Benji wasn't just a suspected killer. He was also a babysitter. Every Tuesday, according to later testimony from Roberta Williams, he'd pull into the Williams driveway in Gladstone Park, knock on the door, and take Carl and Roberta Williams's young daughter to church class. He'd help her with homework, stay for dinner. Roberta called him family. Her daughter, Dakota, called him Uncle Benji. The man who allegedly carried a revolver in his waistband also carried a child in his arms. But that calm exterior hid a history even the Williams family didn't fully grasp. Because according to underworld legend, never verified but widely repeated, Benji had once been hired by the Moran family to kill Carl and Roberta Williams. The story goes, he waited for the moment, watched through the window, and stopped, frozen, when he heard Roberta singing a lullaby to her newborn. He lowered his gun and walked away. The next morning he switched sides. Whether that story is true or has become part of Melbourne's gangland mythology, one fact is certain: Benji joined the man he was allegedly sent to kill. And from that moment on, the Williams family had their most loyal protector and their most dangerous friend. Behind closed doors, he was calm, polite, protective. But when Carl needed someone gone, police suspected Benji handled it personally. August 2003. The body of Mark Malia, a small-time dealer, was found burned beyond recognition inside a wheelie bin in West Sunshine. Police later confirmed it was connected to Carl Williams, and Benji Veniamin was a prime suspect. His alleged getaway driver, Farouk Orman, would later tell investigators words to this effect: he'd entered his crazy time. Unpredictable, untouchable, terrifying. It was more than rage, police believed. It was detachment. The boy who once believed in loyalty had now allegedly turned loyalty into execution. Surveillance teams from Task Force Piranha tailed him day and night, but he was always a step ahead. He knew every unmarked car, every route. Whenever police closed in, he disappeared. No calls, no witnesses, no trace. He was living 2 separate lives, and both were starting to crack. At home, he sat at the Williams family dinner table, laughing over pasta, the girls playing at his feet. Outside, police believed he stalked the streets with a loaded revolver tucked behind his belt. One half father figure, one half phantom. Police called him unreachable. Even within the underworld, men started avoiding him. They said his eyes had changed, that he didn't blink when someone died. He wasn't chasing money anymore. He was chasing control. The calm hitman who preyed with children by day was allegedly turning into the same kind of monster he'd once feared becoming. The question wasn't how long he could keep living both lives. It was how long before one of them finally killed the other. And as Melbourne's streets grew quieter, every man who'd once called him friend began checking over his shoulder, wondering if the next knock at their door would be Benji's. March 23, 2004, La Porchetta, Carlton. Andrew Benjamin Veniamin, born 16 November 1975, walked in expecting a meeting, not an execution. Across the table sat Domenic McGatto, his old friend, his mentor, his rival. Their voices were quiet, controlled. Witnesses recalled tension, but not volume, the kind of silence that hums before impact. According to court testimony, the conversation turned personal. Old loyalties, old betrayals. Names were mentioned, including men both had once called allies. Then, something shifted. A look, a reach, and the calm broke. Veniamin moved first, or so Gatto told the court. The same .38 Smith & Wesson police believed he'd used before flashed between them. Two ex-boxers, both trained to land the first blow, fought for control of the weapon. Then two shots, one through the neck, one through the eye. Andrew Benjamin Veniamin collapsed. Blood pooled on tile. The air filled with the stink of gunpowder and disbelief. Gatto handed the revolver to the restaurant owner, wrapped in a napkin. For police. Outside, Benji's silver Mercedes sat idling, engine running, lights on, as if he believed he'd walk out alive. Gatto was later acquitted on a self-defense verdict in May 2005. The jury accepted his claim that Veniamin had drawn first. Detective Superintendent Andrew Allen of Task Force Piranha called the shooting a turning point. We broke the code of silence that day. But the real break wasn't a police win. It was the moment the underworld realized the hunter could die too. The altar boy turned suspected hitman had faced death so many times until death faced him. Look at the photos from his funeral in late March 2004. Pallbearers, suits, quiet grief. The same St. Andrew's Greek Orthodox Church he'd served at as a child held his final service. And the question still hangs. How many of his alleged victims knew their time was up, just as he did that afternoon? The war he helped fuel died with him. But the fear he inspired survived. In the end, what was more dangerous, his gun or his loyalty to the wrong people? Because when you serve both the altar and the hit list, eventually one will shoot the other. Andrew Benjamin Veniamin was 28 years old when he died. His funeral was held at St. Andrew's Greek Orthodox Church in Sunshine West, the same place where he once carried candles as an altar boy. Outside, the street was lined with mourners, underworld figures, family friends, detectives watching from cars. Inside, incense drifted through the aisles. A priest prayed over the same marble floor Veniamin once knelt on as a child. Among the pallbearers, media reports noted, was Carl Williams, the man who had made him both feared and indispensable. Roberta Williams kept vigil beside his coffin for hours. She later described it as her final act of loyalty. To police, he was a prime suspect in multiple murders. To the underworld, a necessary evil. To a select few, a friend who never betrayed them, until he did. Years later, his story would resurface in Underbelly, A Tale of Two Cities, 2008. Actor Damien Walshy Howling portrayed him, the calm face, the short fuse, the quiet menace that made viewers forget they were watching fiction. But no series, no headline, no court transcript ever captured what made him truly frightening. It wasn't the body count. It wasn't the brutality. It was his calm. Police believed he didn't kill out of hate or greed. He killed because he could. Because in a world where hesitation meant death, calm was the deadliest weapon. And when the end finally came, it came from the only direction he never expected, a friend across a table. The altar boy had become the suspected executioner. The executioner became the lesson. And when he fell, he didn't just die. He took the rules of the underworld with him. The war ended not with a truce, but with a conversation that turned into gunfire. His story isn't about crime. It's about control, and what happens when the only thing you can't control is your own fate. He left behind a young daughter, a family that mourned him, and victims' families still searching for justice. Because if even Andrew Benjamin Veniamin could fall, what chance did anyone else in Melbourne's underworld really have? You're still here. Do what you meant to do earlier, subscribe. And if you made it this far, you know what to do. Hit the bell. There are more cases like this coming. Cases where the truth is darker than any fiction. See you in the next one.